You build temples and mosques to find him. Yet he's been waiting in silence inside you. The echo you chase in stone walls is the whisper of your own soul. And the moment you stop searching outward, you begin to hear the voice that never stops speaking. Man builds temples, mosques, churches, and shrines believing that within these walls God will descend and meet him. But God never needed walls. He needed awareness. You built monuments for the divine while forgetting that the most sacred architecture ever created is your own being. Ibn Arabi said, "My heart has become capable of every form. It is a temple for idols and the Kaaba of the pilgrim. I follow the religion of love." His words cut through centuries because they remind us that divinity does not belong to any one place. It breathes in every pulse of life. The tragedy of mankind is not that we stopped believing in God. It's that we started limiting him. We thought he lived in our holy books, in rituals, in rules, in rituals repeated but never felt. We forgot that he was never lost. We were. So, we built walls to find him, and then built doctrines to protect those walls. But how can you confine the infinite inside stone? How can you limit the boundless within borders? Meister Eckhart once said, "God is at home. It is we who have gone out for a walk." You see, when you step into a temple, you are supposed to step out of your ego. But most of us step out of the world instead, leaving behind the people who needed love, mercy, and compassion, the very reflections of God. We think holiness is found in isolation, but Ibn Arabi teaches that holiness is found in recognition. The moment you recognize the divine inside every face, every breath, every sound. When a man prays without understanding that God is already listening within, his words become noise. When a man bows without humility, his posture is empty. But when the heart bows, when the ego breaks, when the self dissolves, the temple collapses and the truth stands revealed. You don't need to go anywhere to find God. You only need to go inward. Even Socrates said, "Know thyself," and the prophet said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." They were pointing to the same secret, that the divine is not waiting to be discovered, but to be remembered. You remember him not through travel, but through stillness. You don't reach him by chanting louder, but by listening deeper. Because every time you pray, he answers before your lips move. Every time you cry, he feels before a tear falls. The temple you built in stone will one day fade into dust. But the temple within, your heart, your consciousness, that is eternal. It is there he lives, waiting for you to return home. This is why Ibn Arabi said the Kaaba is not the center of the world, the heart is. For when the heart awakens, every place becomes a sanctuary, every moment becomes prayer, every breath becomes worship. Look around, every leaf, every drop of rain, every atom is performing its own dhikr. Everything is glorifying him in silence, except man, because man forgot that he was never separate, so he seeks God as if God is missing, while God watches through his own eyes, saying, "If only you could see me through yourself." The truth is simple. You built temples for the one who was never outside you. You searched for him in heavens while he breathed through your chest. You read his words in books while he wrote them in your veins. You tried to meet him through religion, but he waited to meet you through consciousness. The temple you are looking for is already alive. It's beating inside you, right now. Humanity keeps wandering in circles, building walls of devotion, thinking God can be captured by direction or design, while forgetting that he was never a destination to reach, but the very essence that makes the journey possible. We cross deserts to kiss sacred stones, yet the dust on our own feet already carries his name. We whisper prayers into the air, believing he is far above the clouds, yet every breath we take passes through his presence. Every heartbeat resounds his remembrance, and every thought that rises from the depth of our silence carries a spark of his voice. Man believes that holiness is somewhere to be discovered, but Ibn Arabi reminds us that the real pilgrimage begins when you turn inward, when you stop searching for God outside the mirrors of matter and begin to notice that the light within you has been guiding you all along. You built temples not because God needed a house, because your mind needed a symbol, something you could touch, while the truth was always waiting to be felt, not seen. You painted the divine in color and carved him in stone, because it was easier than facing the endless sky inside your own soul, easier than confronting the silence where he waits for you, without name, without form, without direction. This illusion of distance was born the moment we believed that God and man are two separate things. The moment we gave him a location, we lost the meaning of his infinity. We built religions to bring us closer to him, yet with every wall, we drew another line of separation. Every border became a veil. Every ritual became repetition without awareness. The tragedy is not that we worship, but that we worship without presence. The lips move, but the heart sleeps. The tongue remembers, but the soul forgets. Ibn Arabi said, "The Kaaba is not the center of the world. The heart is, because the heart is the only place wide enough for the infinite to dwell. The universe itself is one vast prayer. Every atom bows, every star sings, every breath moves in the rhythm of remembrance. You are surrounded by worship that never ends, yet man insists on looking up while the truth unfolds inward." Socrates said, "Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." And centuries later, the prophet repeated, "He who knows himself knows his Lord," because both pointed to the same door, the one that opens only from within. The moment you look into your being, without fear, without defense, without label, you see that the one who searches and the one who is searched for are the same. There was never a distance, only the dream of separation. The temples you built are reflections of the temple you carry. The domes represent your mind reaching upward. The sanctuaries represent your heart seeking stillness. The candles represent the sparks of awareness lighting the darkness of forgetfulness. Every architecture of faith was an echo of the inner design of your soul, but you forgot that the blueprint was always within. The body was meant to bow, because the heart was meant to awaken. The hands were meant to lift, because the soul was meant to rise, and the words were meant to call, because consciousness was meant to remember. Every time you kneel, you are returning not to a God outside, but to a wholeness inside. Every time you pray sincerely, you wash away a layer of illusion. Every tear that falls in surrender is the rain that cleans the temple of the heart. The divine was never waiting for your voice, he was waiting for your attention. When your eyes close and your breath slows, the separation dissolves, and you realize that the one who listens has always been listening through you. Meister Eckhart said, "The eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me." This is the secret of union. This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said, "My heart has become capable of every form." When you reach that state, no temple is foreign and no prayer is strange, because you see the same flame burning behind every name. The journey to God is not a journey in miles, but in awareness, not an ascent to the heavens, but a descent into the self. The deeper you go, the higher you rise, and the higher you rise, the more you dissolve into what always was. You stop building temples, because you realize you are already one. The body becomes a mosque, the breath becomes a mantra, the silence becomes the sermon, and the space between your thoughts becomes the holy ground. When you reach this knowing, there is no need to call him, for he was never far, no need to search for, he was never hidden. The truth unfolds in quiet recognition. You build temples for the one who lives within you, and when you finally return to that inner sanctuary, you find that he never left, that he was waiting behind every heartbeat, whispering, "I am here, I always was, I always will be." Every act of worship becomes a mirror reflecting what lives inside the worshiper. When the heart is empty, the reflection is hollow. When the heart is awake, the reflection is light. Man believes that prayer is an act performed toward the sky, but the sky was never the destination. It was always a reminder of the vastness within you. Raise your hands toward the heavens, not because God is above, but because your own spirit longs to remember its height. Ibn Arabi said, "The moment you call upon him, know that he has already called upon you, because the call itself is his echo moving through your being." And when you realize this, you understand that every prayer is a dialogue within your own soul. Tragedy of human devotion is not in its absence, but in its misunderstanding. People pray to a God they imagine far away, reciting words their hearts no longer feel, chasing approval from an image they themselves constructed. And so the prayer becomes performance, the sound becomes ritual, the act becomes repetition without presence. Meister Eckhart once said, "If the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, will be enough, because that thankfulness does not rise from the tongue, it rises from the awareness that he has always been here. It is not the prayer that finds God, it is the awareness within the prayer that unveils him. When the heart is absent, even the most sacred rituals become mechanical. The lips move, but the spirit is silent. The body bows, but the ego still stands. The mind chants, but the soul is distracted. Man kneels, yet his thoughts wander from past to future, forgetting that the divine can only be found in the timeless moment of now. Rumi said, silence is the language of God, all else is poor translation. And indeed, when the heart is quiet enough to listen, the space between words becomes full, the silence becomes alive, the listener and the listen merge into one. And that merging is what true worship was meant to be. Ibn Arabi taught that every breath is an opportunity to remember, because remembrance is not repetition, it is return. To return is to awaken to the truth that every inhale brings him closer, and every exhale releases illusion. When prayer is born from this awareness, every breath becomes worship. The sound of your heartbeat becomes dhikr. The quiet between thoughts becomes meditation. The moment you open your eyes to the ordinary world, you see his signs written in every color and shape and shadow. He is not found in loud proclamations, but in the still awareness that whispers, I am here within all that you see. Those who pray to a distant God imagine themselves separate, they cry for him as if he were deaf, they seek him as if he were lost, they ask for his presence. While standing inside his presence, the sun never stops shining, only the clouds move, and when the clouds of the mind pass, the light is revealed in its own glory. Prayer was meant to be the clearing of those clouds away, to polish the mirror of the heart until it reflects without distortion. But man turned it into noise, he shouted into the wind, hoping to be heard, forgetting that the ear which hears the prayer and the voice which utters it are both his. When the heart awakens, every action becomes prayer. Washing your hands becomes purification, walking becomes meditation, silence becomes communion, and love becomes the highest form of worship. For love is not a feeling, but recognition, the recognition that the same essence breathes through you and through everything that exists. To love truly is to pray without words, to see God not as an object of faith, but as the fabric of all being. When this realization dawns, there is no longer inside or outside, no longer worshiper and worshipped, there is only witnessing. Nietzsche once wrote that those who dance were thought mad by those who could not hear the music, and in the same way those who pray with awareness are often misunderstood by those who only repeat the form. For the aware prayer, they dance between silence and sound, between breath and stillness, between being and dissolving. Each movement becomes surrender, each word becomes offering, not to please God, but to awaken God within, and that awakening is the essence of all devotion. In the end, prayer is not about asking, but remembering, not about seeking, but returning, not about words, but about awareness. The true prostration happens not when the head touches the ground, but when the ego bows before the infinite presence that lives within the heart. And when that happens, the need for repetition disappears, because every heartbeat becomes a conversation, every moment becomes sacred. The divine listens before you speak, he answers before you call. He is the breath that gives life to your words, the stillness that receives them. The prayer and the response are one and the same, and when you understand this, you no longer pray to find him, you pray to remember that you are never apart. Illusion of separation is the root of all suffering. Man builds temples, mosques, and churches, hoping to find God in bricks and walls, forgetting that these are only reflections of what already exists within him. He looks outward because he has forgotten how to look inward. He worships the symbol and forgets the meaning. He bows before altars of stone, while the living temple inside him remains abandoned. Ibn Arabi said, my heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles, a convent for monks, a temple for idols, and the Kaaba of the pilgrim I follow. The religion of love, wherever its camels turn. For love is my religion and my faith. This means that God cannot be contained by place nor confined by name. The true dwelling of the divine is the heart that remembers. When man searches for God in external spaces, he creates distance between himself and the real. He begins to believe that the journey is outward, that he must reach a sacred location or follow a prescribed ritual to be close to the source. But the truth is, the path is not measured in miles, It is measured in awareness. Every step you take within is worth 1,000 steps outside. Every moment of silence is worth 1,000 chants. Every glimpse of awareness worth 1,000 pilgrimages. Plato once said the unexamined life is not worth living. But Ibn Arabi would say the unexamined self cannot find the divine, because the divine is not a thing to be reached, but a truth to be unveiled. The soul is the true sanctuary, not built by hands, not shaped by time. It existed before form and will exist after form. When you sit in silence and listen, you begin to feel that vastness within you, the same vastness that stars and galaxies mirror. You begin to sense that everything you ever sought is already breathing within you. The mystics of all traditions understood this. Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you. The Upanishads declare you are that, and Ibn Arabi echoes them, saying he who knows himself knows his Lord. Yet despite all these echoes, humanity continues to seek outside, continues to pray to a distant sky as if the infinite could live anywhere else but here. This is why the mystic path is so misunderstood, because it calls you to destroy your idols, not the idols of stone, but the idols of thought, the beliefs that limit God to a shape or space, the images that reduce the infinite to a name, the boundaries that make him separate from the world. And when you begin to break those inner idols, you discover that the entire creation, his body, every atom, his reflection, every breath, his movement, and when this realization dawns, you can no longer say God is in the temple, or in the mosque, or in the book. You begin to see him in the eyes of a stranger, in the sound of the wind, in the stillness of your own heart. Socrates once said, "Know thyself," and this wisdom became the foundation of all philosophy. But for the mystic, this was not intellectual inquiry, it was divine unveiling. To know yourself is to know the essence from which you were born, because you are not a separate being, you are an expression of the one manifesting itself in countless forms. This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said the universe is a mirror in which God sees himself. If you polish that mirror, you see clarity. If you cover it with dust, you see distortion. Most people see the distortion and call it the world. Few see the reflection and call it God. When you realize that the divine lives within you, the entire purpose of life changes. You no longer worship out of fear, you worship out of recognition. You no longer seek to possess him, you surrender to the knowing that you are already possessed by him. The longing ends, because the seeker and the sought merge into one. The prayer becomes listening, the silence becomes presence, and the duality between you and him dissolves. This is the death the mystics speak of, the death of separation, the death of illusion, the death of the self that thought it was alone, and from this death comes life, eternal life that sees divinity in every face and sacredness in every breath. Nietzsche once said, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster himself." And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss gazes back at you. The mystic would answer yes, because the abyss is not empty, it is full of God. When you look deeply within, you do not find nothingness, you find fullness, you find the infinite looking back, and this realization transforms your entire being. You no longer live seeking meaning, you live as meaning itself. You no longer ask, "Where is God?" You breathe and know he is here. So when the muezzin calls from the minaret, or when the bells ring from the church, or the mantras echo from the temple, they are all reminders, not destinations. They are songs that point back to the silence within. They say, "Look not at me, but through me, for the beloved lives beyond sound, beyond form, beyond words." And if you close your eyes and listen deeply, you will realize he was never absent. He was simply waiting for you to return home to the temple that was never built by hands. The temple that is you, the divine, does not need your temples, your chants, or your rituals. He was complete before you were created. He listens before you call, he answers before you speak, and he lives before you believe. And yet man continues to cry into the sky, searching for an ear that has always been near. The truth is you have mistaken the direction of your devotion. You look outward when the journey was always inward. You keep knocking on doors that were never locked, because the key has always been within you. The mystics have tried to tell you this in every age, that the distance between you and God, an illusion of the mind. Rumi said, "I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God." The moment this realization dawns upon you, the endless struggle to find the divine outside begins to dissolve religion was never about building walls, it was about tearing them down. Every prophet came not to give you a new place to worship, but to show you how to recognize the presence in all places. Yet humanity forgot. They began to worship the form and forgot the essence. They held onto rituals but let go of awareness. They began to pray to a God who was far away instead of feeling the God who breathes within every heartbeat. You see, the divine is not a being sitting in some distant realm. The divine is being itself, the existence that moves through everything, that sees through your eyes, that loves through your heart, that thinks through your mind.